Welcome to Let's Think About It with Advocates Protecting Children. I'm Maria Keffler.
I'm Erin Brewer.
And I'm May Lyle.
What are we talking about today, Erin?
Well, today we're going to do something a little different, kind of a positive spin today. We're going to talk about the Advocates Protecting Children Take Action page. A lot of times people hear what's going on and they feel, there's a heaviness and a helplessness that sets in. We want to give people ideas for what they can do because every single person can do something to fight back against this dangerous ideology. And we have a list of things on our page I thought we'd just go through today. The first one is the Let's Think About It memes. Maria, you've been just phenomenal at coming up with important kind of insights about this and the Let's Think About It memes.
It's so important to be asking questions and to push back on this with people. There's a lot of assumptions. There's a lot of things that people think they know about the transgender ideology. But as we've counseled parents who have children who are trans identified, is to ask some of those questions that are going to reveal the lack of logic in this. And so that's where these memes came from, is let's just put some questions out there and get people to start giving some answers, because it doesn't take very much to expose how flawed, faulty, hypocritical, and convoluted this whole ideology is.
And it's such an easy thing to do. Just post it on your social media account, send it to a friend, maybe send it to a legislator.
And these are so short and to the point that it doesn't take much time to do.
And if you feel like the meme is too provoking, too provocative, take the text out of the meme and just type it. And then it's a genuine question. Like, so is gender fixed or is it fluid? Which is it? And that's not really provocative. That's a genuine question. And you really can't, I don't think, get in trouble yet for asking questions. You can get in trouble for saying men are not women. But for asking, well, how does a man know that he's really a woman? That's a genuine, curious question.
Yes, very much so. The next take action is to put a truth sticker in public places legally or on your car. And just some of the things on the truth sticker are children cannot consent. This is something really, I think the children cannot consent is so important that doctors are diagnosing a so-called trans identity based solely on a child's self-diagnosis and then their consent. So I love the fact that the sticker says that. It says in big words, sex is binary. We don't have spurg, we have eggs and sperm. There's nothing in between. We're a sexually dimorphic species.
Oh, I just now understand what speg is. I've been seeing it around. There's no speg. And I've been meaning to ask people, like, what is speg? Now I get it.
And now we know.
Speg.
Now I know.
Or spurg.
Yeah. Well, I've had conversations with a friend of mine who every time we talk about this, she reminds me that she has a PhD in biology, and she's implied that I have a third grade understanding of chromosomes because I believe that sex is binary. And at one point I asked her, because the argument is that sex is on a spectrum and it's diversity, and look at diversity of skin color and look at diversity of eye color, and it's all diversity. And I said, well, usually when there's a chromosomal issue that results in like Down syndrome or Klinefelter syndrome or cystic fibrosis, we don't consider that diversity, we consider that disorder. And I said, where is the line between what we consider diversity and what's a disorder? And she said, oh, I love questions like that. So answer it, so answer it. But I've never gotten an answer.
Yeah, I think it's so important to push back on that absurdity that just because there are people with disorders of sexual development means that we're on a continuum, because we are not. Our chromosomes are not on a continuum. They're sperm and egg, and that is it. If you want to make a baby, that's what you need.
Right.
One of them says, trans women are men and trans men are women, something again that you can potentially get banned for on social media, but because this is a graphic, you can get away with it. We found that whatever algorithm it is that social media uses to censor statements like women
Men
don't have
can't be women.
penises. Yeah.
Right.
They don't catch them when they're on images. So if you share something like this via an image, it's much less likely to get flagged as against their community standards.
Mm.
The next thing is the postcards, and I love these postcards. I think that they're really slick. Maria, do you want to talk a little bit about who you might send the postcards to?
Yeah, we put some of those let's think about it memes on postcards. Use them for your personal stationery. I mean, grab a pack and, when you have a thank you note to send somebody, there's no reason you can't put it on a postcard. Or if you want to jot a note to a friend you haven't seen for a while, put it on one of these postcards. But they're great for campaigns. They're great for sending to legislators. We've got the SAFE Act going on in Ohio right now, and there's some question about whether it's actually going to go to a vote, go to committee. Grab a pack of these postcards and send it to the head of the committee. Send it to the legislators, the representatives who are working on this, and tell them, I want this passed. I want to see this go to a vote. Those are some good uses for postcards.
And in that regard, it does not matter if you live in the state or not.
Mm-hmm.
You can write and let them know your feelings about this.
That's
And
a good
the
point,
thing that
May.
I love about postcards too is that other people see them as they're going through the system.
Yeah.
The postal workers see them, and it may or may not make a difference, but I like to think that maybe it will.
Well, this reminds me, when I was in college, I had a boyfriend who was an artist. He was a phenomenal artist, and we didn't live in the same town. When he wrote me letters, he would decorate the entire envelope with these beautiful artwork. I actually still have those somewhere. Don't tell my husband, but they were so gorgeous. But sometimes it would take like a week or two for one of those to get to me. And normally it would only take a few days. And we were like, I think sometimes some of the postal workers are grabbing those and like sharing them around because they would take a while to come. So you're right. They are seeing the stuff that goes through the mail.
Definitely. The next thing is to find your senator and representative and just let them know where you stand on these issues.
Mhm.
There are many states right now that are proposing legislation that would stop these horrible medical interventions on children. I know Utah is doing it, Ohio, I believe Arizona. So there are a couple of states that are actively working on this legislation.
Mhm.
If your state isn't, let your legislators know you want to protect sports for women and girls. You want to protect spaces for women and girls. You want to stop children from being medically transitioned. Let them know. And this is a really easy way to do it. A lot of these legislators, you just click on their website and up comes a form and you can really quickly send in your feedback or just pick up the phone and call them. This is something that every single person can do. And it doesn't take a lot of time, but if they get a lot of this kind of feedback, it does make a difference.
Mhm.
And they don't just assume that they know what you're thinking without reaching out to them. And they need to, from what I have come to understand, they record every phone call that they get
Mhm.
and they make note of it.
That's a really good point, May. And one of the things that we're finding, people who are trying to push these transgender policies are very organized, they're very well funded, and they're making a lot of noise. And a lot of times when testimony is happening, you'll find all of these folks get brought in to testify pro-trans policies. And those of us who are saying, hey, this is a problem, we need to be cautious about this, we're not showing up in as great of numbers. Parents who are dealing with this with their kids, good parents shield their kids from the public. Good parents don't expose their kids' lives to public scrutiny. So the parents who are not on board with some of these policies, who are dealing with kids who are trans identified, they're hiding their kids, they're protecting their families, they're being good parents. So we need everybody who is concerned about this to stand up and say, hey, I'm not on board with this. This isn't okay. I have concerns.
That's a really good point. The other thing is that there are a lot of detransitioners that they're so damaged that they're not able to share their voice. So it's incumbent upon us to do that work. This is our responsibility, and it's something that everybody can do. I know that the first time I testified in front of the state legislative hearing, I was terrified. I'd never done anything like that. It was only about 4 years ago, and I was shaking. I couldn't steady my voice. I was terrified, but I did it because this is so important, and
and
everybody can do it.
And one of the things that we'll often hear is mind your own business. This doesn't affect you, stay out of it. Well, the answer to that is, yeah, it is my business because this is affecting the next generation. As an adult, it is my business to protect children in my society. So don't let anybody tell you this isn't your business. It is.
And it definitely affects me when I'm in a bathroom and a man walks in and there are laws that protect him and not me.
And that happened to you.
Yeah, that when I was at the Capitol actually testifying, I was in a changing room and a man walked in and all the stalls were taken. So I had to change out in the open area. And this man was gawking at me, oogling me. It was very uncomfortable. He was not uncomfortable. He was enjoying himself.
Yeah.
He was enjoying making me uncomfortable. So this does affect us. So if anybody says, mind your own business, insist this is our business. And also counter maybe with, imagine if if people hadn't had that feeling during Nazi Germany. People thought it wasn't their business, so they didn't stand up for the Jews. Well, guess what happened? That's what happens when you don't stand up. That's what happens when you decide that something is that is horribly damaging to our society is none of your business and you're not going to stand up for it. The next thing we have on our list is to put flyers in clothing pockets in stores such as Target's, which do not protect women's rights and safeties. Target has a policy that allows anybody to go into either bathroom, whichever one they claim to identify with at the time. So there's some flyers on our website that you can print off and just slip them in pockets in the clothes.
Leave it in the changing room, put them in the changing room.
Put them on cars, this is easy. When I was on my Always Erin tour, I had a bunch of postcards and informational flyers, and I would go into the libraries and just stick them into books. We just get your message out there. Just put it in unexpected places. This is something, even if you're really shy, you can do this. You can just go and stick this and, go to the clothing section and, every pocket, just stick a flyer in. We have donate gender critical books to libraries and free libraries. And we had an initiative just the last couple of weeks where we did a fundraiser so that we could send books to all of the people on the committee in Ohio that are going to be hearing the SAFE Act legislation in a couple of weeks. This is something that anybody can do. Just send these books to legislators, send them to libraries, put them in that free little library, or give them to somebody who doesn't know what's going on.
And
another place.
Go ahead, May.
Another place to give them to would be churches, churches or school counselors even.
Yeah. That's a great idea. And we have resource packets. We can put a link to that in the information below the video that you can request a resource packet to be sent. Now, these are expensive. They cost us about $25 to put together and send. So we appreciate if you request one, if you can also make a donation to us to cover that. We were really grateful. We got all of our resource packets covered by donations for the SAFE Act. So thank you for that. But we will send these resources, and it doesn't have to have your name on it. If you're uncomfortable having your name on it when it goes to the school counselor, that's okay. It'll come from us. We're not afraid of that.
And so often people haven't heard the alternative side. So just giving them some information can be very eye-opening for them. Yep. And oftentimes it will reinforce this like gut instinct that they have that something's wrong. Suddenly they can put their finger on why it is that they felt so uncomfortable about the transgender ideology. Yeah. The next thing is write a letter to your local paper. And I would say not just your local paper. Write letters to media outlets in general. Anytime they misrepresent stories, anytime they say people are trying to prevent transgender children from using bathrooms, people are trying to prevent transgender children from participating in sports, write those media outlets and say that is a misrepresentation of what's going on. First of all, there's no such thing as transgender children. They're children who have gender dysphoria. This is a mental health issue. And second of all, nobody's trying to stop them from using a bathroom or participating in sports. So push back on the language. When we just recently did a video about James Tubbs, who's a man who sexually assaulted a 10-year-old in a public restroom, and many media outlets are not representing him as a man claiming to be a woman. They are calling James Hannah and saying that a woman sexually assaulted this child in the bathroom, and this woman is going to be sent to the youth juvenile detention center with other females. Anytime you see something like that in the media, push back on it. Insist on them being honest in their reporting. It may or may not have an impact, but the more voices that they hear, the better. And in this case, I think also letters to the editor can make a difference.
If you're not sure how to write one, we can help with that. Reach out. We'll help you with how to write one, where to send it. But there's also lots of resources online. Just Google how to write a letter to the editor, and you'll get a very specific how-to. If writing hasn't really been your thing, there's a lot of help for it.
The next one is go to local school board meetings or watch them online. Sign up to speak during the open comment agenda items. Again, so many people have no idea what's happening in their school boards. Utah, the state's Board of Education just put forward a draft of a proposed policy that it looks like it was written by transgender activists. I can't think of anything that would be more pro-transgender ideology.
Oh, I'm sure it was, because all of these are coming out of GLSEN, the Gay, Lesbian, Straight Education Network. They have a model school district policy. It is being boilerplated everywhere. So you're right. It was written by transgender activists.
And if nobody is keeping an eye on this just gets floated right through. So as you know, I have participated in school board meetings. I know that they're not super exciting all the time, but this is something that anybody can do. It's just to go be an observer, go make sure that things are happening the way they're supposed to, and also investigate your school board's policy on gender dysphoria, see how they're presenting it, and challenge them if they've accepted this ideology and if they're insisting on imposing this ideology in the schools.
And you don't necessarily have to have a child in school at the time to do these things.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good point. All citizens, because we are the ones who are paying for the public school. Public schools are funded out of property taxes. But even if you're not a property owner, the entire community can go to school board meetings. It is open to the entire community. So again, if somebody says, well, you don't have a kid in the school, it doesn't, this isn't your business. Yeah, it does.
It is.
I'm paying taxes. This is the next generation. This is my business.
Exactly. And it's against the law for states to impose these kinds of cultic ideologies into the schools. And we have a duty to protect our children. So it is our business. In the same way as, I hate to keep making the analogy of Nazi Germany, but if people had stood up and said, no, we're not going to allow this horribly racist ideology to take over our communities, we might not have had that, the horror of the Holocaust.
I forget who said this, but I've read this several places of, a professor, I think it is, talking about teaching his students about some of these atrocities, the Bataan Death March and all these atrocities. And students always say, if I'd been there, I wouldn't have allowed it. I would have stood up. I would have done something. I wouldn't have allowed slavery in America. I would have, not allowed the Jews to be in the concentration camp. Well, what are you doing right now? What are you doing to fight this? If you are aware that this is a problem and you're not doing anything, then you're incorrect. You would have stood by and let the Jews go to concentration camps. You would have turned a blind eye to slavery. You would have not stepped in because you're not doing it now.
That's so important. And especially as we're increasingly seeing these efforts stepping up, the United States government is pushing this ideology into third world countries. The UN has embraced it. The World Health Organization has embraced it. These are organizations that are supposed to be concerned about the health and well-being of people when they're pushing this ideology that advocates incredibly self-harming behaviors. It is. This is it. We're at a tipping point. We're at a point where we have high-level officials suggesting that we get rid of terms like mother and father because they're problematic. We get rid of terms like boy and girl because they're problematic. So they're trying to erase these important distinctions and suggest that we are all one type and should all have, basically get rid of women's sports, get rid of women's bathrooms, get rid of any kind of space for women where we're vulnerable. This is basically erasing women and girls as a category.
it's not morphing us all into one group of non-gendered people, because that's not possible. What this is doing is erasing women and giving all of the rights and privileges to men.
Yes.
Exactly.
And especially in the prisons, these are
Mhm.
these are incredibly vulnerable women.
Yeah.
There's a reason the Geneva Convention says that male and female prisoners are not allowed to be housed together. It's
Mhm.
because they recognize that women are vulnerable, that girls are vulnerable, and that men have the potential to not only rape them but impregnate them. These are important distinctions between men and women that must be honored, because if they're not, women and girls are put in positions of being incredibly vulnerable. The next one is to start a parent citizen watchdog group. This is something I'm going to defer to you two. You're both really good at this.
May, why don't you talk about it?
Well, kind of by default is when this type of organization happens, because you don't think that you're capable of making a difference, but I guarantee you, each person, and when you put two people together and that adds another person, it keeps snowballing, and you'd be surprised at how much traction you do get, whether you think it's insignificant or not. It's very significant.
There's something about a group. There's something about having a group of like-minded people that's very powerful. We did this in my school district, the Arlington Parent Coalition. I want to give a shout out to them. Created a watchdog group, and I'm no longer actively involved with it, but I'm watching, and they are gaining more and more traction. There are more and more people, even in my extremely woke blue of the blue area. There are people who are starting to wake up and recognize what's happening to our kids, and having that organization there is huge. And you will get calls from media outlets who want a comment on an issue. It happens very quickly.
And it's a great way to synergize efforts.
Mhm.
It's and to keep buoying each other's spirits, because this is
Mhm.
heavy stuff. It's hard to stay in it, because it's so heavy, it's so discouraging, it's heartbreaking what's happening. So if you're in a group, that can really help to keep your spirits high and keep your efforts focused.
Yeah, the three of us, usually we're not all three depressed and despondent at the same time. One of us is like, oh, I'm dying, this is awful. And then the other two are like, it's okay, take a break. We'll carry the ball for a little bit.
Yeah. And that's so important, because it's horribly disheartening. And so it's important to have people you can, who can help provide you with strength when you're feeling down. The next thing is to put up a billboard. And this is something that a number of different groups have done. And if you have a lot of money, it's something you can do all by yourself. Billboards are powerful because people who have no idea what's going on might notice them. Again, one of the reasons this ideology has been so insidious is because it sort of snuck in ways that people don't recognize, and they don't understand that the LGB is very different than the T, and the T just kind of came along and attached itself, and people don't have any clue what this ideology is advocating, what it's doing to not just to women, but to the LGB community. I just saw something that's being produced by the US government that's suggesting that sexual orientation is based on gender attraction. And that's a lie. Sexual orientation is based on what sex you're attracted to. It has nothing to do with gender. So they're pushing this ideology in a way that's undermining the LGBT community, as well as women and children, and all these other ways this ideology is so damaging. So putting up a billboard is a way to get attention from people who might have no idea what's happening. Finally, we have take out an ad in a magazine or newspaper. Again, if you have some funds and you can do this on your own, that's awesome. If not, do a fundraiser. There are lots of ways to do fundraisers. Do something at your church, do something with your community group, do something with other parents. For a magazine or newspaper ad, it doesn't take that much money. And that's something that most small community groups would be able to do.
Yeah, figure out what you want to advertise. It could be, just coming to a school board meeting. It could be, hey, this is happening in our community. It could be, hey, come and look at the Advocates Protecting Children website. Figure out what you want to advertise, We can help if you need help creating a graphic or creating, your ad, and then just buy it and put it in the magazine.
Yeah. Are there any other efforts that you can think of? That one of the final things is to sign up for a Take Action checklist.
Mhm.
We are kind of tuned into efforts that are happening. For example, ending soon, this next week, I think, the UN has called for submissions of input, and oftentimes what happens is that they're connected. He's called the special rapporteur for SOGI. He's the independent expert for the UN. He's connected to all these really pro-transgender groups, and he is able to send out these requests for input, and they all know about it. So they all put in submissions that say, we totally support this. The UN should support medicalizing children. It's necessary health care for children to be put on puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones. It's discrimination if people don't use somebody's preferred pronouns. Doctors should be required to perform double mastectomies on girls with gender dysphoria, and they will just flood the UN with their support, and we don't have that yet. So we are actively trying to stay on top of these initiatives, so that when there's a call for submission, we can let you know about that. So if you sign up for a Take Action newsletter, we will be sending that out weekly, and you'll be aware of these kinds of actions, so that you can put, even if it's something as simple as, I don't agree with the UN special expert on SOGI's underlying assumption that gender identity and sexual orientation are in the same categories. They need to be separated out. Or I don't agree with this SOGI expert's supposition that transing kids is necessary medical care. Just something that simple will get your voice in, will push back, and will allow it, so that that's not established as a mandate. Because when they don't get any pushback, the UN assumes that it's a mandate.
We're going to try in this Take Action newsletter to make it very clear, very simple. We're giving you links. If possible, we'll give you exemplars, just to make it very easy. Click the link, do the thing, you're done.
Yeah, the other one that we're currently working on is to push back against the Utah State Board of Education policy. If there's policies in your states that you know about, let us know how people can make submissions, and we can put that in our Take Action newsletter, so that we can help amplify your efforts.